The Madison County special session for Tuesday, September 6th, 2022 is in session. Before we begin, I'm going to read a statement from Mr. Perkins. It says, due to an emergency situation that will prevent me from conducting the September 6, 2022 board meeting, I give Ken Kubik, Director of Personnel, the full authority to convene, facilitate, and make decisions in my absence at the September 6, 2022 board meeting. Sincerely, Alan Perkins. All right. We're going to start off with the invocation. Mr. Brooks, would you do the invocation for us, please?
Let's pray. Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, Lord, we want to thank you for all the many blessings you've given us. Lord, be with us tonight through this meeting and our decision making. Lord, just ask that you watch over this meeting. Thank you, Lord, for all the many things you've done. Amen.
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 Mr. Kubik.
Thank you, Mr. Curry. I recommend approval of the agenda dated September 6th, 2022, with the removal of number 83 under the supplemental contracts.
Motion.
Whoa.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of the agenda dated Tuesday, September 6th, 2022, with the removal of number 83 from supplemental contracts. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. First budget hearing, Ms. O'Bannon.
Good evening. Can everyone hear me in this big crowd? I know everyone's tired already. I can talk fast through the information that's routine that you've seen, but I would really want to point out the issues. Some we've already talked about tonight, but for those that don't know, yeah, we have spring, summer, winter, fall seasons, but we also have a budget season, and this has been a long one this summer. I promise you, if you ever had to try to throw a dart at a moving target, well, that's what we've done all summer, because things change, just personnel. We still have so many vacancies, and with the adjustments to the salary schedule and changing those and their SPED program. So, and just talking about the capital plan. With the proposal tonight, you'll see that I have put in the budget, because this budget goes in next week. But it can be changed. Our first amendment's in January. We'll set it up, we'll go through it, and I want you to see what's in it. But again, it's been a pretty big challenge with the moving pieces and the moving parts that we have. But let's talk about a little bit. I do want to first say Gina Gross is here, and she's my partner in crime. She's just been incredible in getting this budget together. It's a long process. Every representative in this room and all the other leaders, administrators, everybody here has played a huge role in this, and for me to be able to summarize and bring this to you, to the board. And I mean, it's been incredible, and they are amazing and helped me so much. So, and I will say, even though the state law requires that we cover every fund type, a lot of this will look very familiar to you, but we may have some quizzes as we go through, just to see if you remember how everything works. So, every year stands on its own, because depending on the nation's economy, the state's economy, and the uniqueness that we're seeing in Madison County, just that we were talking about, all the growth we're experiencing, and all the subdivisions going up everywhere, especially in the areas we just talked about. So let's get started. We're going to talk and focus on some of the things about Madison County. We're the 8th largest school system in the state. And you can see the growth from 2021 to 2022. Ms. Stump just informed us that we're the 6th largest school system as far as our SPED program, with Huntsville City being the 5th. And Ms. Stump and her staff and Mr. Solly and their team, they feel it and they know it. It's been tough, and it's a huge challenge for us. Kids coming in every day with different needs and special needs that, again, that's that moving target. Where do we add? Where do we add additional support, and what that looks like? And I will focus on the two challenges we have in Madison County right now. SPED services for all the changes and the needs and the unique situations and our growth. That goes without saying because we've been talking about that for just an hour. So we have 30 schools in Madison County, 15 elementary, 6 middle, 6 high, 3 other, our Career Tech Center and our Virtual Academy and our alternative school.
Ms. O'Bannon, does that ADM include pre-K?
No, sir.
It does not?
No,
You know roughly what the number is for pre-K?
Gosh, I don't. It used to be 400.
We have about 400, a little over 450 in our, close to 480 in our OSO.
Okay.
I'm not sure about it.
Developmental. Yeah,
I'm not sure about it, development.
we have 13 classrooms in developmental pre-K for our SPED, typical peers. And then I'll show you the OSR, which he said we have around 450. See, I was going to say 400, 480 in OSR. But no, the state, we get no funding for that, very little funding for that. So it's not included in ADM that we're funded on. And I wanted to say, please stop me at any time if you have any questions, because I'm going to try to move through fast, pretty fast. And Ms. Bates is saying yay, right?
Did I say that out loud?
I
But
found
do
that these,
stop me
I
if you
found
have
these
any
microphones are
questions.
super sensitive tonight.
We're also, and I report this every year when when we go to the bond market. They want to know, and this is huge, makes a huge impact on the bond rating. We are the 8th largest employer in Madison County. That's the entire county. So we employ, these numbers are up right now because we have several additional class size reduction teachers and ESSER-funded coaches and extra support right now. So the numbers are up a little bit, but we, right now, last estimate with this moving target is 2,502 employees, not counting our substitutes. 1,481 teachers and administrators are certified, and then 1,021 support personnel. Again, with the fund types, I tried to make it colorful so that it would match the separate colors to the slide background so that as we go through the fund types. Of course, we always focus on general fund, our general operating fund, which is state and local funds first. And you can see that's the majority of state sources, represent 67% of the budget. It's usually around 65%, but we are receiving more supplemental monies with the advancement technology funds. This is the 5th year in the row. They're not guaranteed from year to year, but we have, and that's changed that percentage some. But what I want you to note is this comparison with Huntsville City and Madison City. It allows you to see our lower funding locally, meaning, we rely more on state funds. And state funds are earmarked basically they're more restricted for salaries and benefits, for particular programs, nurses, at-risk program, transportation. So we don't have as much flexibility as the other two school systems when it comes to adding extra programs or funding for our facilities and our deferred maintenance or capital needs. So let's get started with our general fund type. As I said, the certified units are earned at each school. It's based on previous year's ADM without pre-K, and we capture that data first 20 days after Labor Day. The salary amount we're funded is based on the state salary matrix and the number of years of service, experience of service with our employees. Benefits are also calculated for the state earned units, and this is what we receive from the state for state earned units based on our enrollment. So you can see here the benefit amounts for insurance and retirement are mandated by the state, and they have not changed. It's $800 per month per employee. That's $9,600 a year. And then the retirement did go up to 12.59. That's our match, employer match. So that went up, and you'll see a comparison in a minute. The teacher fee allocation for classroom instructional support is going up in 2023 from $700 to $900 for every certified unit, and that money becomes available October 1. Textbook allocation, however, has not changed. So we're still at $75 per student. that won't buy many books at today's prices. So we're going to talk about some of that and how we're covering those. Also, the funding for the teachers by the state for teachers is based on approved grade divisors. So what this chart shows is that for every 14.25 kindergarten to third grade students, we earn a teacher. And on down the line for the fourth, sixth. So that looks really good for elementary school, doesn't it? It does. It looks like a great. But what you earn also has to cover your PE teachers, your special education teachers, whether it's collaborative, a special resource class, or a collaborative teacher, covers your art and music, your electives in high school, middle school. Did I say PE? PE teachers. So it has to cover all that with what you earn, and it's been quite a challenge if you'll look at grades 4 through 6 because those grade divisors are higher. And every year in the legislative session, they've lowered them a little bit the last couple of years. We try to focus on that to see if that can be lowered somewhat. Right now, with the ESSER monies and the stabilization monies we've received, we've been able to keep our class sizes lower and workable, doable. But when that money's gone, I mean, we still have these same divisors to work with. So that also goes into the earned units. And these are our earned units for employees in 2023 compared to 2022. Our ADM was up by 354, and we earned 25 more certified employees with 20 teachers. But remember, this is the net effect of all the calculations. So schools, we had a few schools, elementary schools, that lost enrollment, or went down in enrollment, I should say. So they lost a few units. So this is the net impact for that. So here are the foundation program dollars, and you can see the results of the 4% raise and the changes in the salary matrix because the salaries and benefits primarily is how we use this money, other than the student instructional support funds that I just talked about. So look at the bottom. We're at we earned in dollars $131 million for our major state funding source, the foundation program. Okay, and then you hear this every year. This is what we will receive, the $117 million, after the 10 mil match comes off the top. So we will actually receive the $117 million. And we'll see the impact of the 10 mil match in a moment and some other state funds, but notice the fleet renewal allocation. See fleet renewal? It didn't change at $7,581 per bus. And I'm going to ask you your first question. Our allocation increased from $940,000 last year to $1 million, but the allocation stayed the same, the $7,581 per bus. So how did it increase?
More new buses.
Yes.
Yes.
She gets a star, first star.
Teachers.
We have more buses that qualify for fleet renewal because they are within that age of 10 years or newer. So we went from 124 funded to 145. And the way we've been able to do that, Mr. Randolph's not here, but we have put aside some of our advancement technology monies every year to go with fleet renewal so that we can purchase 22 per year because we want to get that percentage on up. We're around 70% funded right now. We need to be closer to the 90% funded. It's like a balancing act. So we've taken advantage of those funds because they can be used for transportation, and you'll see in a minute what we've set aside. So our funding has increased there. But let's look on at I give you this every year so you can see how we've climbed back from proration. I think I need to take this out next time. But our funding, the main thing to notice, we've climbed up. We're at $6,862 per student for 2023. And that's really the average for all school districts in the state. It's around $6,500, $6,800 per student. And why is that? Our federal funding and our local funding varies from school districts. We saw that with Huntsville City and Madison City. We're much lower. But why is the state close to the same for every school district in the state of Alabama? You may remember,
Foundation.
Is this based on?
Ms.
ADM?
Rucker?
Based on ADM?
Nope. Why would the
The
state,
foundation.
why would our state funding, where we've got 18,000 kids, closely per student, closely resemble what a smaller school system, another school system would have the same amount of funding per student by the state?
The match. Yeah.
Yes, the match, the 10 mil match makes it equitable. If you bring in more, you have to match more. So, very good. And that match was ratified in 2006. All school districts are required to contribute local effort equivalent to the value of 10 mills of local district property tax. And we're going to see what that looks like in a minute. Amounts in excess of that 10 mills are available to the district to spend for general operations. So with just a total of how many mills do we have in this county? What's our millage rate?
16 and a half.
16? 16?
16, very good. This contribution toward the match is quite costly for us, right? 16 mills does not, 10 mills deducted does not go very far with our 16 mills. So, again, as I mentioned, the state average, the goal was, or the result of the 10 mil match, is to make across the state it to be more equitable in state funding per student, and it has. So, in theory, a poorer school would receive the same foundation, and that's why it's called the foundation program, as a wealthier school system. So, and that's just a foundation. It doesn't consider extras or anything like that. So see the 10 mil match requirement here from 2019 to 2023, and how it steadily increases as our property tax revenue increases. And you'll see in a moment that our projections for property taxes for 2023 are $27,675 million. When you take the 13 million match out, it brings you back to 14 million for general operations, for anything else that you might need for operating. And we've done this every year. This is how the state tallies this. They pull this from our 2021 financial statements. Every school system, our 4 mil district tax is pulled the revenue that we brought in. It increased from 2020, and they divide it by the 4 mills to get the value of 1 mil in our district, and times 10, and that's how they came up with that 13,251, 290. And they spread that love to us when they send our allocations out. And to go a little bit further, we'll take it a step further. So we earned, remember, $131 million foundation program money state. We only receive $117 million. So the 10 mil match is the difference. If you apply those same percentages to the foundation units earned, we're actually covering with our property taxes 123 or 124 of those units that we earned out of our property taxes, not from state money. Then on top of that, we do have local units outside the foundation program, and we've been able to keep them around in the 30s. I'll show you on the next page. We have 33 as we do staffing in the spring for reasons of to make sure our class sizes are doable. Again, to work with our special education program, to bring in teachers in that arena. We have to add a few, and this is what it looks like for this year. So you can see we're staying in line with the prior years with the 33.15, and then of course the assistant principals are not funded. They use a weighted average for them per student for assistant principals, and the board has set its own allocation for those, as well as counselors. So we're at a total of 6915 local units. And that might be one off because we've had to add a teacher in the SPED arena. So what I want you to understand with this particular slide is the easiest and quickest way to get into financial trouble is to overstaff and overextend your local units. Because we don't have to do RIFs here. We did during proration. I think we RIFed one area, and we don't want to. But that's the easiest and quickest way in a lot of school districts in the state. That's how they've gotten into financial trouble, when the states had to come in and take over and take care of their personnel costs because they have overextended. These are recurring costs, and we've been able to keep. Actually, I don't know if any of you remember. You probably don't. Ms. Thompson might remember. But before proration in 2008, we had 78 locally funded. And we cut back and became even more leaner. But since then, this is about what we can afford to do. Let's go to other state funds quickly. This is what I was talking to you about. It's the ETF Advancement Technology Status. It's now called EAT, Educational Advancement and Technology Status, so I didn't, state funds. But here we put in what our insurance will be. It's going to be higher than that. We pulled the difference out of local money. It's going to be around $800,000 this year because of inflation. Then transportation, again, 12 buses purchased here, 10 out of fleet renewal that you'll see in a minute, so that we can keep that 22 a year going for the next few years so that we can increase our percentages for fleet renewal funding. Of course, working with Ms. Nikki and IT to make sure we are taking care of technology, our one-to-one initiative, and what the students and staff need for that. And then our security measures. We took the Synergix Crisis Alert System and paid the balance of what our allocation was from that. So it's been great, these funds. And they started out 5 years ago as a little over $1 million. Then it went up to $4 million, and it's been $5 million since then. However, this was the second half of what they held back during COVID because they weren't sure how COVID was going to impact the economy. And so they held those back. So this is the second half. So I don't know what it'll look like next year in the legislative session. Hopefully and these are the OSR, the Office of School Readiness that Mr. Solly alluded to. We have, let me see, we have 25 classroom grants, 18 in Title I schools and 7 in non-title schools. Ms. Kim Haynes, Mrs. Bass, Mr. Solly worked, and on the title schools, we're able to blend some of that money for personnel to make it as effective as possible. Then you all know that many critical services are not fully funded by the state. That's no secret. So some of these state allocations did increase significantly last year. However, with a system our size, we continue to the need to fill the gaps with local funds. And as just some examples here with health services, we have 34 nurses, includes our nurse supervisor, our manager, and our educator. So the state covers with their allocation 15. We locally fund the other 18 so that we have 1 in every school and 2 in Sparkman High. So that's a 44 or 56% split. Now here we're talking about, let's skip down to the ARI services. That's our local reading specialists that we call reading coaches. This allocation went up, we have 15 in our elementary schools. This went up to $80,000 per local reading specialist, so it's almost fully funded. We have 2 that we absorbed through the state foundation program funds from all the elementary schools. Mr. Solly worked his magic, and we were able to absorb all of those. So there's no local funding with our local reading specialists. Back to pre-K and our developmental allocation, it did increase from $560,000 to this $863,000. However, because of the significant needs in these pre-K classes, we added a board-certified behavior analyst, a BCBA, strictly to focus on the pre-K students that are coming into our school system. And then we were able to add another classroom. But in the district, again, we have a total of 13 developmental pre-K classrooms. And with each one, we have 2 aides, so that's 26 aides. And so the local dollars that we spend on that is $1 million. And we'll get back to SPED in just a minute. I want to talk about transportation first, but as far as K through 12 services. That's something I really want to slow down and let you focus on and take a look at it. But transportation, again, I was going to go over the fuel here. This is for, the allocation we receive from the state is for everything transportation except buying buses. That comes out of fleet renewal. That's a capital project. So the operations allocation increased, and this is based on the routing report, right, Mr. Malone? And the LEAPS report for our bus drivers as to where they are on the salary matrix. And this covers everything. But this year we did, because fuel had increased by 100% from 2021. Our diesel fuel was $450,000 in 2021, and already this year it's over $850,000. We're budgeting. I know prices are coming down now. So, but we still budgeted with the projections. I worked with Mr. Creekmore this summer, about a month ago. Again, I told you it's a moving target. But we have 1.3 in there for fuel for next year. We'll be covered. If we don't use it for fuel, we'll go back and pick up some of these parts and supplies that we've put in here for local funds to pick up. But crossing guards and insurance on our fleet is always covered out of local funds. That's not new. Now, this is an important slide, so I wanted to focus on this just a little bit before we move on to our local revenue sources. I pulled our locally funded expenses projected mostly for our aides, because we now have 84 McBow aides because we added one last week. So this is a little outdated, but we've pulled aside, Ms. Gross and I worked together to pull out to at least the federal allocation couldn't cover them all and take care of all the other expenses. So this is mostly for aides. It also covers salary, some of the psychometrists, and the director's salary comes out of local. But if you look at the bottom, that's what I want you to focus on. Our SPED program expenses from state and local funds, and that's our teachers out of foundation, state and local funds. So this doesn't include the federal allocation that we received. So it's increased $5 million since 2018. And you say, well, what's the significance of that other than obviously the budget impact? But the federal government also has a law called Maintenance of Effort. And in that law, it states that it's the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, IDEA B. In order to continue to receive federal money through IDEA B, the school system must spend at least the same amount from local and state dollars for the education of children with disabilities as was spent the year before. So as we increase, we're setting another benchmark every year. You cannot, if you have a reduction in expenditures, there are a few waivers and exceptions, and it's like an act of Congress, no pun intended, to waive this requirement. Say, for example, our child count went down drastically, that Mary measures and captures every year. We could send that in and say, we have a reduction in expenditures, but this is why. Or if we have, say, several retirees that were at the top end of the salary schedule and then the new ones coming in, and you can prove, but I mean, it's really, really, really difficult for this to be waived. So remember, as our local and state increases, so does our benchmark for what we spend from year to year because of federal law. You can't reduce the level of expenditures for IDEA B.
What is the enrollment across that? Is it enrollment causing the increase, or is it?
Unique needs across the system.
So is enrollment
AIDS.
the same, or is it?
Well, our enrollment's growing. Again, we're the 5th largest,
Is it growing more?
6th.
I mean, overall, we're not growing.
It stayed about 12% of our overall student pop. I mean, we've been very consistent, around 12% of our student population is.
Okay.
And But our student enrollment is 12% of a higher number.
It is growing, but I just want, this is the, again, we just have to, it's a challenge for us locally, and of course, with state funds, I mean, with the, like Mr. Solly said, with the enrollment increasing in state funds, we are earning more teachers. But they base it on state and local. You can meet it by looking at state and local, or you can meet it just looking at local. We meet it every year. You can see that. But I just want you to see what that program cost. I just think it's something the board needs to be aware of.
So the local part is the 2.9, and that's part of the 20. 2,000,009 is a part of the 20 million.
That's just the local support for the aides. I didn't put all the local support in there. I didn't separate that out, but I can at the next budget hearing if you want to see that. Because we also help them with like some testing services that Idea B can't legally cover. There's other non-personnel cost
Okay.
that I didn't include in that top number. Let's quickly move to the local revenue projections. I'm not going through that. You've seen it. You know our millage rate. This is how we came to our 16 mills and how that all originated. We know that. I need to update that because a lot of homes cost more than $100,000 these days. So so here's our projections that we spoke about earlier. If you look at I did a 2% increase over the prior year actual. That's been working out pretty close every year. So if you look at the county-wide, 5.5, projection of 12.6 million. The district projection of 15 million for a total of 27,675,000, and then you take the 10 mil off again. So even though we'll bring in 27 million, we'll only have access to the 14 million for 23 after the 10 mil match. Sales taxes, again, this has been our bread and butter the last several years. We're seeing a $2.5 million increase in countywide and like a $2 million in District 1. So I continue to budget that. I don't know, I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't know if it's going to level off. I don't know with the growth we're experiencing, I don't see that it will. So this has really been helpful, and the reason we're going to be able to do what we've proposed in the capital plan, or whatever you decide that we propose in the capital plan, is pulling that from sales taxes. But still not enough to leverage to build a school that's anywhere from $35 to $65 million. But we can do some things with capital. And then the 2% increase in TVA keeps us right at 3.7 million.
And just to, sorry, Karen, and just to recap, if we had the additional half cent, 0.5%, whatever, that would bring in 10, 15 million?
The half cent would bring in 18 million.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's already in.
Yeah, I saw that.
And if you talk about the, I mean, I know the half cent would be awesome, but you know, you have to work with the other two school districts for that one, because they already have and receive the half cent, the extra. Their cities put those on. And I'm not saying, I mean, it's great. Hopefully that would happen. But the SSUT, the simplified seller's use tax, the Amazon tax, it's bringing in $800,000 a month. So with that, if we just received half, we could leverage enough to build a school.
What's the highest sales tax rate in our area?
I didn't bring that with me. I think it's 9.5.
I didn't have Madison City.
It's 9.5. Where's that?
Is that Madison City?
I think it's Madison City.
And then Huntsville City's 9.
Because like Tuscaloosa, I think it's 10%. I mean, there's other places that are 10%.
Yes.
Yeah.
Birmingham may be.
wouldn't be out of, especially since we're the largest city.
No,
now.
it wouldn't be out of the realm.
And these countywide taxes, the sales tax and the property tax countywide taxes, again, is distributed based on ADM. Every year in the fall, the state captures this data for all of our counties. And we actually increased a little bit this year from, okay, here's the prior year, 37. And you can see Madison City slightly increased with their ADM, and then Huntsville City is lower a little bit. So, and we will know when we capture the ADM, the 20 days after Labor Day, what that's going to look like for next year. But these are the most recent percentages that we have that the taxes are distributed from. And if you just look at Madison County and Madison City, for our district, we're still tied to them for our district taxes. It's around a 69-31% split, or you could say 70-30. But technically, it's 69%, 31%. Other comparisons, you see this every year based on the latest financial statement information. So it'll be interesting to see what the fall data looks like. But just notice here, even though we serve around 7,200 more students than Madison City, our local revenues are close to the same. And then Huntsville City's local is pretty much double, almost the two of us, the other two systems. Of course, Madison City's is smaller. This puts it all together, and this is where I want to explain. Remember that moving target with capital money. So we're looking at the general operating budget. We should start with a $35 million, which is like a 2-month operating reserve. And if you'll notice, our percentages are a little skewed this year, different, because look at operations, maintenance, capital outlay. It's up to 13% because that's where we have the money we're pulling from our reserve for those. I'll show you the projects in a minute that Mr. Kazort went over and where we're pulling from there. So some capital outlays in there for some of those, the wings. And it also, at the bottom, you'll see our salaries and fringes. That's still where we focus on our folks, on our people in instruction and instructional support. But you'll notice the salaries and wages increased from $145 million to $160 million, but the percentage is down because of the capital outlay line item in there. So it might look a little skewed from what you're used to seeing. And here, that projected unreserved balance, fund balance, represents 2 months or 62 days. And again, with putting the capital outlay in there for the year, whatever future years look like, we have to look at this 1 year at a time. We were talking about, well, we don't have money for that wing. Well, if our sales taxes continue, we will. We just look at this year to year to year, and we don't have to wait 5 years. It's the locals. It's building a school that's such a challenge, but it doesn't have to be. But here, so 16.9 is our 1 month reserve. So that gives you an estimated excess 32-day reserve. And we have to be mindful of our future costing challenges with this reserve. Additional, as we talked about, support capital plans and growth for the changes we may make to the capital plan, whether it's 2 months down the road, 6 months down the road, or a year down the road. Those SPED mandates and services that I spoke to you about, we want to, of course, add our other SROs. That's high on our list. We have 10 in our schools and 2 part-time, so that we fund. And then we don't have 10, we have more than 10 in our schools. Where Dr. Minsky go? But the sheriff picks up the others. We fund 10 and 2 part-time, and then we want to sustain our one-to-one initiative. We're doing great with that right now because we receive state money, ESSER money, and our sales taxes have increased. And last but not least is our other educational mandates and services like summer school and some of the programs that we are funding with our ESSER money. So you may think, well, 2 months is a lot, but it's really not considering our needs. This is just the mandates for the fringes. You can see the retirement, that's tier 1, went up this year. It hasn't been, to 12.59. Everything else stayed the same. We're going to talk about federal funds quickly. Different color. Let's look at our federal funds. These are our major allocations. They're at the top of the list with Idea B, Title I. So comparisons to the 2 prior years. We're still up some. Again, the 4.1 million, that's the federal monies that we receive that we use. I'll show you how we're using those. That McBoaid has changed to 74 just last week because we had some students coming into the district with special one-to-one aid needs. We fund psychometrists from this. We have 9. We pick up 2 with local. A resource teacher, the bottom part hasn't changed. The majority of the 4.1 million is used for the left side. That goes without saying for our personnel line items. The Entitled I allocation, we have, it's increased to 3.1 million, and the schools receive 2.4 of that that's passed on to the schools. Ms. Bass, Mr. Solly, Gina and I sit down with our administrators every summer, and she's already worked with them on their budgets, how they're going to spend their money for their school. And this is in order of the poverty percentage. As you can see, we have 11 Title I schools. This poverty percentage is exactly the same as last year because the state allowed us, once again, because of COVID and the counts, all kids eating free last year. I should back up. The poverty data is based on free and reduced meal eligibility. So they've allowed us to use that again for this year. This will be the last year because now that not all kids eat free, the applications are coming in like crazy. There's some changes in the Medicaid law. So we can see our poverty data already increasing. We don't know yet how much, but
What's the minimum percentage to be a Title I
I
school?
was going to ask that.
Is it 40%?
Mr. Solly?
Yeah, 40 is the
40.
School-wide, school-wide, and like, our district sets it at 40 and up. Now, that doesn't mean that we couldn't serve, if we had 2 or 3 more, quite frankly, if we had 1 more school, we probably couldn't serve an additional school. We'd have to make some adjustments.
Because of the allocation.
Okay.
The allocation wouldn't change, so it would just mean a lower allocation per school, and we would need to have a file of allocations per school we have right now.
Do you see any of these schools trending away from being a Title I school?
Not with the changes that Ms. O'Bannon has mentioned. If the federal law, if I understand correctly, has changed for Alabama, has changed to where any family that gets Medicaid now automatically qualifies for use. An initial glance at all of our percentages, like every one of our schools raised like 6 to 8%.
Okay.
And so where we had some schools that were getting close to probably falling below that line, with this change, we will have more of that for you. So we'll have to, if in fact that's what happens, then we'll need to look at the schools that we're serving, how to evaluate that.
Well, speaking of the eligibility part, the child nutrition program, you can see here the shift back in revenues with the decrease in USDA reimbursement moving down to daily sales for those students that don't qualify for free and reduced. They're paying students, so you can see that shift. Our expenses are much greater because of the cost of food and the cost of the purchased food and the processing supplies. I may have overextended that slightly, but that's very close to what we're predicting. But we still have, ending the year, or beginning 2023 fiscal year and ending, we're still at the required 1-month operating reserve for CMP, which is approximately $1.2 million for us. And this is what our meals per labor hour looks like. Now look, they've increased last year. The state standard is what? Does anybody remember what we're supposed to be for perfect staff? Anybody remember that? 16. But you can see what this really shows us. And let me tell you, you're thinking, oh, well, our participation was more because everybody ate free. Well, no, look at participation at the bottom. It was slightly up, yes. The main reason that meals per labor hour went up is because we had so many absences without subs. You know, that's a labor force issue everywhere. Custodians, bus drivers, CMP, and many times, and still COVID going on, we could not get subs. So you're producing more with fewer employees. So it really showed them they could reach that 16. That's probably not the way they wanted to see that. But if they continue, some of these that are 16 or greater, then we'll look at that. We'll look at that at the end of the first semester on into staffing, and we may be able to or should add another worker. See, when they get up to 18, 19, 20, as Moore's Mill did and Endeavor, yeah, if that continues, when we've got a more normal year with not so many absences without subs, then that's when we would add an employee. But it should be around 16, and we haven't been close to that too much. Moore's Mill always is.
So 16 meals per labor hour. What is that? Can you define?
That's the state standard.
Okay.
That is the state standard, and that's what they want us to shoot for to be most efficient.
And so if you're over that, are you more efficient?
Yes.
Would you argue that? So, okay.
Yes. But we don't know if they are or not.
Okay. So,
We know that they are because they had absences.
They had
It was out of our
absences.
control.
and they did more with less.
But this year, we're going to see that and measure that again. And if they
Was the qual-
continue with that,
And the quality was just as good.
yes, sir.
All right. So,
Yes, sir. We have.
Wasn't that,
in the for-profit industry, you.
Oh, no, we weren't just handing out sack lunches.
Well, no, I'm just saying, in most industries, they would say, well, thumbs up. You got higher efficiency. You have, quality is still good.
With fewer.
Nothing's broken. I mean, I'm not saying that you don't hire. I'm just saying that you
And we
city, I think, I may be wrong, but I think they got so overworked, they all quit. I mean.
right. Yeah, what's the threshold of the meals per, that's uncomfortably,
high,
yes.
1920.
Okay.
So you're bumping up against that limit there in Moore's Mill.
And even 18, we look at it if it's consistently high.
You in Denver too.
But they want us to look at it when they reach 16
Okay.
in many cases.
Yep.
Our school meal prices did not change. We just added the breakfast and lunch prices for our students because for our paying students. Now we're going to talk about our emergency relief monies, our ESSER funds. This is all the different pots of money except for the first corona relief amounts that we spent the first year. So you can see that we have spent all of the ESSER 1, Gear 1, ESSER 2, and have requested those funds for reimbursement. We request those funds monthly, so we have 0 unexpended balances. For the others, we have unexpended balances, and we budgeted the entire amount when the period of availability ends or expires in 2023. For our largest allocation, the ESSER 3 ARP, we will be able to use those balances, that balance, for 2023 and 2024. So let's see what these look like individually. ESSER 2 reserve funds. This There are different stipulations for this, for every one of them. So Mr. Solly's done a great job with this too, planning and coordinating these for instructional support. This is the 3 categories that they can be spent. So we just spread it evenly across those 3 for the remaining amount for ESSER 2 reserve funds. This is our largest allocation. So it goes through 2024, and what we tried to do is remain consistent with how we were using ESSER 2 for these different categories, and just bring that on forward without missing a beat, and just picking up with ESSER 3 monies. We have added a little bit more into mental health for the enrichment center, and we have added textbooks, because our 2 main adoptions, that $75 per student just didn't cover those. And we've been able to put $500,000 in textbooks to help with that this year and next year. And then our summer school program, this has been huge to help with that program.
And we're still handing out MiFis?
Not as much. It's gone way down. Ms. Rodman has taken care of that, but yes, as needed. And we have the capability of turning them on and off.
Oh, yeah. I know.
So when these ESSER 3 funds are expended in 2024, that's going to have to come out of local funds to cover these coaches and teachers and.
We don't know that we'll have them. These are temporary positions.
Gotcha. Okay.
Unless, some of the initiatives will work with Mr. Solly and the leadership team, but this is temporary to fill those learning gaps during COVID and to help our schools get up to speed, hopefully. But we won't have $9.8 million.
You may have said this in a previous slide. How many instructional coaches, roughly, math lab teachers and math coaches?
Oh, I had it in last year's slide. Do you have your spreadsheet?
Each of our elementary schools has a reading and a math coach. Each of our secondary schools has a math lab teacher and an instructional coach. So we have
30,
15 elementary schools, so that's 30.
Right.
Math.
Right.
About the same, we have 28 of the secondary people. And that's one of the things, like for the math coaches with the Numeracy Act, math coaches will start being put into school districts as a result of that. So I'm hopeful by the time this money kind of runs out, the state will have started picking up math coaches.
Okay.
And summer school as well, with that initiative with the Numeracy Act and the Literacy Act. And I did talk to Dr. Payne about that face-to-face at our last ASBO meeting, and I said, these ESSER funds will run out.
Right.
And he said, that's the plan. He can't predict what goes on, but that is the plan, to put those in the state budget. But we're using the money to the best of our ability while we have it.
But the state is thinking about that and some of these valuable positions.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Gotcha.
And then this is their ESSER 3 reserve. We'll do half this year and half next year in 2024. And these are the categories, the requirements for using this money. Idea B. Ms. Stump's doing a good job managing the ARP Idea B funds that go away this upcoming year. They have a 9/30/23 termination. So what we're doing, looking at some initiatives she and her staff have determined to offer the greatest impact on the program. We can get up to date on a lot of our intervention program classroom kits and supplies that will have a lasting impact, a lot of professional development, and she wants to do some contract services for teacher recruitment and parent outreach. Then with our pre-K, we have $65,000 left there. We're going to try to upgrade some of the playground equipment on our for our special needs students with that, and add a little bit of technology. This is the last ARP. This is our homeless. And these are the supplemental funds that we'll use for these general areas. Ms. Bass is working on this right now. So in conjunction with the regular McKinney-Vento allocation that we've applied for, that she discussed with you, the new homeless resource specialist liaison, we'll take this money and just to supplement that program to help with that salary. And then use it for the specialist phone, travel, transportation for these kids to school of origin, and just some general ideas for the ARP money, that it also goes away in 2023. Debt service, I'm not going to, if you would like to see our entire, through 2040, we have outstanding $185 million. This is our annual payment. This annual payment is about the same until 2030, and then it drops down a little bit to 10 million, and then now down to 7 million. So if we ever can go to the bond market, right now it's a unique time. We're trying to balance inflation, interest rates with that, and building cost. You think, okay, well, I've got to wait 2 years till building costs come down. I mean, not building costs come down, till interest rates come down. I need to wait. Well, while you're waiting, building costs are skyrocketing. So you have to find and I'm in touch with Johnny Deal regularly. And for example, if we had $1 million, that would bring us $16 million to leverage and go to the bond market right now. Right now, the rates are anywhere from 4% to 5.5%, which is not bad. Mm-hmm. We're used to all the 3s and the 2s, and those days are gone right now. But depending on what inflation looks like, and I don't mean to bring in politics, but after the election this November, the market just goes crazy, and so we don't know. It could be more, it could be less. So I'm looking at that on a regular basis, just to see how quickly we could do something.
Are we also kind of considering maybe not going further into debt and just living with it?
Yes, ma'am, we are.
Okay.
Without a new revenue stream. Yes, ma'am.
Well, I mean, even with one, I mean, eventually, if you were disciplined enough, then we would get rid of the debt.
Not in a system growing like we are with the just 16 mills of property taxes. We are, with the growth that we're experiencing and will experience, we can't keep up without borrowing. But I'm not saying borrow within the next 5 years even. We'll need a new revenue stream to do that. But I'm just saying, 1 million would bring 16 million today, right now, this minute. I talked to him earlier on the phone today. And I'm not advocating that, Ms. Rucker. I'm just saying that we have to look at all options to cover the growth that we're going to experience the next several years. Let's get over to capital projects funds. This is our local school bank loans. They're doing a great job with those, paying those down and getting those paid off. So I just wanted you to see that. Those are all paid by the local schools, of course.
Did Sparkman High pay off their band uniforms early?
They did. They did. Paid them off this year.
Yep.
Capital projects. Now, what I have to complete a budget. Next week it goes in. It has to go in. So what I did, let's talk about this quickly. Our fleet renewal allocation is a little over $1 million. We're spending the $1,072,000 on 5 regular buses, 5 special needs buses, so that's 10, and then another 12 from the A&T funds. That's our 22 buses, so that we continue to increase our percentage funded. But if you'll notice at the bottom, state funding is $75,810 over 10 years. That's the cost of that's the allocation. The cost of a bus now for a regular 72-passenger bus is $103,000. You saw that on our last bid, and $111,000 for a special needs bus. So we're a little behind the curve there. Then our 5.9 that we used to, that can't be used for capital because we are using that for debt to help cover that $12 million annual payment. So here's the capital plan. So what I took was the funded, that was proposed to you tonight, and noted where it has been budgeted. Now, we can still, no matter what's decided on the capital plan, we can still set this funds aside for capital, and then I can always, if there's significant changes, when we do our first budget amendment in January, I don't think we'll be out building a lot by then because there's a design phase. I can make those changes. But with the local funds, I have highlighted. The state bond issue, you've already approved that. And then we still have, this will be the last year. Do you remember in 2019 when we refunded 3 warrants? We did 3 2019 series. And we decided, instead of reducing our debt payments every year, to take those savings up front so we could do some capital projects. This will be the last year that we'll have any money from those bond refunding issues.
Those 3 years.
The state A&T money, we've budgeted, you've approved those, but I just wanted you to see as we go. I will tell you, I did not put in here, this is the last page. This was everything showing as funded with the exception of the machine shop. Because we knew the bid had come in high and we didn't know exactly, but I will tell you this. We had the first budget, the 1.1 million set aside. Mr. Gazort and I talked about it from the state bond issue. We still have not assigned a project for that 1.1 million. We were holding it. But then the bid came in, 1.7. So we still have state bond money that can cover that or cover something else. If we reject this bid, rebid it later, but that's why it's showing as funded, and I had shared with Mr. Kazort it is funded, but then the bid came in and changed that, the way we're looking at it. Is that still what the board wants to do? Looking at that new call, are we rejecting the bid? What we will decide. So it's not listed here, but everything else that was funded on his proposal is listed here with the funding source. And we're using our reserve and our increases in sales taxes to fund where it says local funds, and some were already budgeted for local funds. Lastly is our non-public local school funds, and that's just the difference from last year, 1.9. These are our booster clubs and all non-public funds for our schools. That's the fund type that I'm supposed to show to you. So that concludes unless anybody has any questions.
Any questions for Ms. O'Bannon?
Or anything different you'd like to see Tuesday night, a week from now. We'll get your staffing reports by school.
Thank you, Karen.
That's good. Thank you, Ms. O'Bannon. Mr. Cubic?
I recommend approval of contracts for services as submitted.
Motion.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of contracts for services as submitted. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I recommend approval of the federal programs resource specialist as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of the Federal Programs Resource Specialist as submitted. Any discussion? Yes, I'm pretty sure that is the job description. Yes.
It's I'm assuming that you guys went over this with the meeting that I missed. I mean, I read through it in the
So
packet.
Ms.
but-
Bass had a presentation on this job description. Yeah. Mhm. All right, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I hereby recommend that the employment of employee number 1, a non-tenured instructional aide at Lynn Fanning Elementary School, be terminated effective 17 days from the date of notice of termination is issued.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the board to approve the superintendent's recommendation to terminate the employment of employee number 1, a non-tenured instructional aide at Lynn Fanning Elementary School, effective 17 days from the date notice of termination is issued. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I recommend approval of the personnel items as submitted.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation for approval of personnel items as submitted. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I recommend approval of supplemental contracts and discontinued contracts as submitted with the removal of number 83 on supplemental contracts.
Motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the recommendation approval of supplemental contracts and discontinuance of contracts as submitted with the removal of number 83 supplemental contracts. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, this concludes our special session. We do have an executive session. I was going to ask this to Ms. Cindy. We all got the documentation on this unique situation transfer. Do we? All right. If it's the will of the board, if you guys have reviewed that, we can go ahead and vote on that unique situation transfer. Okay. All right. I need a motion. We have a unique situation. I need a motion to accept the unique situation transfer request.
Motion.
A motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. And a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Motion.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is adjourned.
I think we're all.